Hey everyone. Not a usual video today, so no usual intro. I don't think we can pretend that this is exactly a business as usual kind of 24 hours. Yes, we should probably talk about the layoffs. But before we do anything, it should be noted that the layoffs at Bungie are pretty substantial. Practically every part of the studio is seeing layoffs. The number is undisclosed, but it's clear that it's a large number, and frankly, there are no words. This sucks. To all the Bungie devs who lost their jobs, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Earlier, I've been watching some of the videos put out by other content creators on this matter, and yeah, some of them I think have basically summed it up pretty well. Dato's video stated that his industry friends informed him that this is being done because there's overlap between the roles that exist at Bungie and the roles at Sony. This also comes after Bungie promised that the acquisition with Sony wouldn't result in employees getting laid off. That was something like a year and a half ago, and, well, here we are. It's punditry, but this comes as Sony was making their big pivot to live service games, or games as a service, about a year and a half ago, with so many different live service games getting announced at that one Sony State of Play. All the games of service, all the time, was basically their mantra. And recently there have been a few games media articles that have quoted anonymous Sony insiders. Again, this doesn't seem to have too much backing as far as like an actual named source is concerned, but the supposed anonymous Sony insiders state that the pivot wasn't quite working as they'd expected. And you know what? Yeah, I feel like that's something you could have learnt simply by observing the way that most live service games launch nowadays. It is oversaturated. There are a few big contenders out there, such as Destiny and Warframe, and those big contenders tend to just sort of soak up the whole market. You want to know part of the reason why Anthem failed? It wasn't due to just a bad game alone, it was releasing into a saturated market. Yes, there were flaws with that game, but that's beside the point. You sat there and you made a game, or a series of games, for a market that is already full to bursting, and where there is literally the moniker of a quote-unquote Destiny killer. That remind you of anything? Because to me it reminds me of World of Warcraft, and the idea that you would have a WoW killer of an MMO, and yeah, that's decidedly not something that happens every day. At very least not successfully. So, yeah, this may be the fact that Sony is scaling back its live service support across their whole catalogue of studios, perhaps including Bungie, but at current that's all part of the rumour mill and is caught up in the fog of war that is this entire sort of situation with regards to things. The one piece of information that I do trust is, well, the information that we got from Jason Schreier's article. His reputation as far as reporting across the game industry, as far as I'm concerned, has been pretty stellar. I believe his word. He has reported on so many different things. I even remember back 9 years ago when he originally told us of the word of the great Destiny malaise. Yeah, this is not the first time Jason has been working Bungie sources, and if what Jason says in his article is true, it makes me utterly furious. I don't know what the truth is, and I don't know where it lies, but regardless, there is one thing we absolutely know, and that is that a bunch of Bungie staff being laid off helps no one. And I'll say this too, I don't care what you think of the company and its decisions and what it's done over the last few years and how the latest expansions performed. I don't care about your opinions of PvP or the lore or the story or PvE or the diversity of build crafting. If you are one of the people who is celebrating people being laid off in this Christmas season from a developer that gave them practically no warning, go to hell, don't come back. There's a lot of speculation about the future of Destiny right now, and there's a ton of doom and gloom out there on Twitter. Morale in the community, and I imagine in the studio too, is probably at an all-time low. This sucks, there is no two ways about it. But is this the end of Destiny? Frankly, no. As someone who's been doing this for 10 years, I'm very hesitant to go ahead and talk about this topic, because Lord knows hindsight is 20/20, and sometimes the future loves to throw you curveballs, but I think the tired explanation and comparison with World of Warcraft works in Destiny's favor here. To put it really simply, World of Warcraft is still around because it makes money, and I imagine that the story is the same with Destiny. It hasn't stopped making money overnight. It is still a massive live service game, and even with the bad news from today, I don't think the goose is exactly cooked. People will still log on to this game. It's worth remembering that the number of us who sit down on Twitter or YouTube or who are in that gaming sphere as core players are actually, numerically speaking, a minority. We are literally only thousands of people, but there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands more who probably didn't even know that this news broke today. They are just sitting there playing the game on a console or somewhere else, and they will not realize it until much, much later. They may not realize it at all. It feels really hard for any of us watching this video or listening to this news to believe, but that's because we are in that core gaming sphere, and that's the weird reality. The majority of the player base is not actually going to read the TWAB or TWID. They're not going to sit there and see videos from people like myself, or Datto, or Astacross, or anyone else. And you know what? There is actually a weird reality to this, and it's the reason phrases like Dad Gamer exist. It's the reason that meme exists in the first place. It would be wrong to assume that Steam numbers alone, which are so commonly cited as a sign of the game's health, are in fact a sign of the overall health of the game. But what I would state is that they absolutely do give you a good idea of what the core player base of Destiny on PC feels, because I'd say a lot of core players, as far as I can see, are on PC. And when I say core, I really do mean people who are in touch most of the time with the content and the flow of the game and its development. And I think that those low numbers, as of late, and potentially going forward, are reflective of a bitter core community sentiment. Bitter is absolutely the word that I would use to describe this generally. I've been covering this game for a literal decade. I don't believe in all the doom and gloom regarding the prospects of the game's future, not just yet. Certainly not until something has happened. I feel as though even with everything going on right now, there is easily still a future plan inside Bungie. I imagine the plan is to let Final Shape release, and then talk about the next expansion because they don't want to jump the gun on things. I don't know where the game's future leads, but I'm also not horrifically pessimistic. I don't believe that it's just going to stop existing one day. But by that same token, man, does this hurt. I wouldn't even say that I'm particularly close with that many Bungie employees. I know people who've been lucky enough to get hired by Bungie. I know that some of them have also been laid off today. And I can't sit there and describe this as anything other than a knife being twisted. I can feel it in my gut. And I'm just having to watch this unfold all on the sides. I'm not one of the people who just lost their jobs. So, yeah. I wish I had something more cheery to say. I wish I had something better to say for the people who've just lost their jobs, other than the fact that if ever I do in my very limited capacity see some kind of opening, and if I know I can direct one of you to it, I absolutely will. But there is not much I can do other than simply give you this word. Even if Bungie and Destiny are unshaken in this moment and still go on to continue without really being affected in the long run, I still believe that this day, the 30th of October on 2023, is going to go down as one of the worst days in the history of the studio. Because today, so much of Bungie's talent just left the building. And I can't help but feel like it was all completely avoidable. This is the worst kind of news. I don't know what more I can say without resorting to expletives, and I'd rather not do that to a YouTube audience that's not used to me swearing like a sailor like I would on certain streams, or if they just saw me casually gaming. So I think I'll mostly leave it at that. It sucks. I want to say we will get through this, because I don't want to succumb to the melodramatic doom and gloom about the game's prospects being all downhill from here. But I also don't want to minimize the absolute tragedy that is so many people losing their jobs at this time. So, to everyone who has lost their jobs at Bungie, I am so sorry, and I really hope that you will land on your feet. With all that said, content will continue this week. I don't expect it to be anything that is particularly cheery. In comparison, I will keep you all updated on this, because, yeah, this feels like a gut punch still. And, yeah, I will keep making stuff as it goes forward, and I will keep telling you about the wonderful story that's been created by these wonderful devs. And I will keep doing what I can. But, yeah, today sucks. I wish I could give you more succinct notes than that. I'll catch you all soon, and I will see you Starside.